Hey guys, what's up? Today I kind of wanted to do a breakdown of one of my beats that I made here in Ableton Live. I normally do lo-fi style beats, maybe some chill hop, jazz hop, whatever you guys want to call it. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. And I feel like when I first started trying to be a music producer, I watched a bunch of other music producers on YouTube either make a beat from scratch or explain their thought process by breaking down a beat. And that was honestly the most helpful thing for me when learning, kind of what makes a good beat. And so for this one, I kind of wanted to do how I arranged this because I feel like that's a lot of the trouble with starting a lo-fi style beat, or maybe any beat in particular, is you have a 4 or maybe an 8 bar loop, and it's kind of like, where do I go from here? So I'm going to give 5 tips on how I arrange my beats. So I'll go ahead and play this one through so you guys know what it sounds like, and we'll get into it.
No matter what happens, you've got to hang on. You've got to hang on. No matter what happens.
Okay, so that's pretty much how the beat sounds. So the best advice I could say is that you want to keep things interesting. So for me, the first thing I start with when I'm making a beat is I like to put down a nice chord progression. And so the first thing I have on top here, this is my main chord progression. And for this song in particular, I actually used the Native Instruments plugin called Playbox, which is a fun little toy. And I'll show you guys what it looks like here if you haven't seen it before. So when you open it, normally you get these funky little cubes. And the really cool thing about Playbox is if you don't know anything about music theory, or if you know just a little bit about music theory, it shows you what scale we're in. So right now this beat is in B major, but it's super easy to change. So if you do know what scale you want, you pick the scale. If you don't know, or maybe you're just starting a new song, pick different things and find one that sounds nice to you, and you're good to go. Because what it does is it gives you some random chords, and if I click into here, these are the chords that it's actually going to play. So these are the different notes in each chord. And and it gives you a random sample which you can change. So this is what the chords are actually going to sound like, and then it gives you an effects channel to change the output of the sound. And what's also really cool is if you don't like any of the samples here in Playbox, you can either bring your own samples in, or you can take these chords and see here how it says drag and drop onto a MIDI track. You can actually take these chords, drop them into a MIDI track here in Ableton or whatever DAW you're using, and now you have some pre-built chords in the key that you want, and you can use whatever instrument you want with them. It's a pretty cool feature. But anyway, that's how I started with this track, and like I said, I don't always use Playbox, but I do like to start with a chord progression, no matter if it's me playing piano or if it's, something like this. So basically what I do is I have this chord progression throughout the entire song, and I feel like that's why it's so important to make sure you really like the chord progression. The next thing I would say to do is to bring things in one at a time. So you'll see here that I don't have everything, starting on beat 1. I have my chords, I have this piano melody, I also have this little 4 notes here that they don't even go anywhere else in the song. It's just kind of part of the intro. But it's bringing things in slowly. You'll see here that the drums don't even come in until bar 9. So bring things in one at a time instead of, just all at once, because you don't really have anything to build. You don't have anywhere to go if everything is already starting from bar 1. So that would be tip number 2. Tip 3, to keep things interesting, would be having something called a B section. So sometimes this is called a bridge. So this section right here, where you can see it looks slightly different. There's tracks that are either cut out, or there's different tracks. This is my B section. So basically, a B section can sometimes be difficult, especially if you're coming just from that 4 or 8 bar loop that I was talking about. But it doesn't need to be, spectacularly different. So if I play just these chords here, so you heard what it sounds like at the beginning. So these are the chords in my B section. They're basically the same chords, they're just kind of mixed up. So now when the listener hears this, it's like it's familiar, which you want it to be, right? Because it needs to feel like it's part of the same song. Otherwise, it's too jolting. You want it to sound familiar, but different. So that's kind of the key to having a good B section is, use the things that you have, just kind of, mix it around a little bit. You'll see here, I did the same thing with the guitar. Like these 2 guitars are exactly the same. They have the same effects rack on them, the same octave, everything. It's just this one is a little bit of a different melody. This piano section as well. You see this piano melody that plays throughout the entire track. This section is just slightly different. You'll see here that I kept some of my fingers down. I do have a little MIDI piano that I like to use. I don't really like to use the MIDI editor to plop notes in. I like to actually play it. So this one I kept some of my fingers down just to have kind of that resonance from the notes continue to play through, and it adds a little bit extra. You'll see here that I also like to kind of roll the chords rather than kind of plopping them into the MIDI editor. It makes it sound, more like a human is actually playing the notes. So that's kind of just a nice little extra tip. But back to the B section. So basically you want to just change it a little bit. The next thing I would say to keep it interesting, tip 4 would be to start layering your instruments. So especially here in this area when you come back in, because once you have your B section figured out, you're normally going to come back with whatever your main melody is, so kind of your section A, I guess we'll call it. So you bring section A back in, but you don't want it to be just the same thing again, right? It needs to be, I feel like it needs to be a little more exciting. So what I like to do is layer extra things. So you'll notice that I added some extra chords here. So this piano, I added an extra layer of piano. with this, zoom out a little bit here, this nice chord, and I just kept it playing through. Same thing here, I added this pad. This is Cloud Supply. Basically, I just added this really nice kind of shimmery chord just to give it some atmosphere. And it's just one long chord with a bunch of kind of reverb and resonance on it just to give it that atmosphere, because I feel like in a chill lo-fi style beat, like that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that's just kind of nice, it's in the background, it's not, super in your face. And that's a nice way to make your track more interesting, more layered, by adding some extra pads, some extra synth sounds when you bring everything back in. I also added a little different guitar lick to go with the main guitar that comes back in. So it's really simple. It's just kind of layering them all on top of each other, and it gives the listener, a lot to listen to, instead of just bringing back the same stuff. Another thing I did when I bring everything back in was I found this really nice shaker sample on Splice, and we'll just play it here. I really love to add kind of a percussive thing when you bring the drums back in. It kind of gives it that that's pushing the song, forward, rather than, we're kind of looping back to the beginning and this is kind of boring. Now we have some forward momentum, and I feel like that shaker really gives you that. Another thing I did with the drums, you'll see here that I do keep most of my snare and my hi-hats and stuff in one track and my kick in a separate track, and I do that mainly for mixing purposes, EQ purposes, and I don't really want to get bogged down in that type of stuff in this video. But basically what I did here, you'll see if I play this track has my hi-hat and my snare in it. So here at the beginning of the song, that's not really a snare, right? That's a rim hit. And I feel like that was kind of a more chill option, and I feel like at the beginning of the song it needed that. But then when the drums come back in after the B section, hit that nice kind of chime there to signal the beat's gonna come back in. And then when it does come back in, you get the actual snare hit. So it's a little bit harder hitting, a little more, that, like I said, that forward momentum. I feel like that's important when you come back after your B section. So that's my best tip for keeping it interesting. Tip number 5, when you're arranging things, I would say to, especially for a lo-fi style beat, add some field recordings, some vocal samples. So I actually have both of those in here. I have some Rain, just a sample of Rain from Splice. I get all of my samples from Splice. I'm not sponsored by Splice or anything. I love Splice. But anyway, this is just a nice little Rain recording. And I just added some reverb. I added an EQ on it and dropped it down just so it's not as harsh, because this was actually, it says Rain Light as the name of the sample, but it was actually pretty intense rain. So I just tried to muffle it a little bit and almost make it sound like that vinyl crackle that a lot of lo-fi producers use to get that vintage feel. So I feel like the rain was kind of fitting for the mood of this song, and it kind of serves the same purpose as putting that crackle in. And same with this vocal sample that I have here. It's basically something to, create some interest, and a lot of lo-fi style tracks have something like this where, it's someone talking, a movie quote, something like that, and it's just
no matter what happens, you've got to hang on.
It just adds a little bit of something. And this was actually the very last thing that I added to this track, just because I felt like it needed something. And it can honestly, a little vocal sample like this can make your song, just an instrumental song, it can really add a lot to your arrangement if you find the right one that fits, it fits the mood of your song. So that's pretty much my 5 tips for arranging an interesting style beat. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm hoping to do more videos like this in the future. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up for me. Please subscribe. It's really appreciated since I'm just kind of getting started here on YouTube. So thank you for watching, and leave me a comment below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.